All right, class, settle down. This isn't just a list, it's a ladder. At the bottom, jokes that tested TV's bleep button. At the top, a moment so volatile the network censored an entire speech and the creators feared for their safety. Multiple levels. Escalating tiers of outrage. You're here because the title promised every controversy explained. You'll get that, plus the one rule that separates cultural offense from physical danger, when outrage threatens bodies, not just feelings. We'll climb from cheeky profanity to bans, protests, threats, and a billion-dollar market saying no. You want the blueprint of how outrage scales? Let's start with the bleep, where one word turns into a stress test. All right, class, settle down. How do you prove a bleep is pointless? You say the word 162 times, add extra on-screen text, and push the total close to 200 uses. Then you dare the censors to do the math. That's not random noise, that's a lab test. The episode is "It hits the fan," and the punchline isn't the word. It's what happens to the word when you drown TV in it. The setup is simple. Take one taboo, put it under stadium lights, and run it like a science fair project. The town reacts like they've summoned a curse, the counter dings like a slot machine, and you can watch shock turn into a shrug in real time. Standards and practices tried to hold the line with context, timing, and acceptable use memos. The show's reply was excess as thesis. If a rule can be mocked by repetition, maybe the rule is thin. You can almost hear the counter as a character. Each ding chips off a sliver of power. By the second act, your ears stop flinching. By the third, the noise is wallpaper. The funniest part is how the censorship becomes the spectacle. When the joke is the policy itself, every bleep sounds like a laugh track the network didn't mean to add. Now, this escalation didn't materialize in a vacuum. Decades earlier, comics did the groundwork on stage, turning swear words into case studies for hypocrisy. Broadcasters tested waters in late-night slots. And a serious network drama had Mark Harmon say shit happens once for realism. The difference here is velocity. South Park packed a whole cultural drift into 22 minutes and gave you a live meter to watch it happen. Repetition is a solvent. Say anything enough times and it loses edges. It's like chewing the same piece of gum past the flavor. You still have the motion, but not the kick. That's why the town's hysteria stops feeling dangerous and starts feeling like a bit. The shock doesn't vanish. It just gets bored and leaves. The aftermath is the part everyone remembers wrong. People thought TV got dirtier. What actually shifted was logic. Networks started leaning on context over blanket bans. Primetime scripts used harsher language with a point attached. Standards memos turned from rigid lists into flowcharts about tone and intent. Comedy Central logged a wave of emails, roughly 5,000 complaints, which proved there was backlash, but not the tidal wave some expected. And the audience learned the meta lesson. Outrage is a megaphone. Noise about a word draws more ears to the word. The episode didn't just pass the test, it graded the system. Censorship looked silly on contact, and a template snapped into place. Mock the rule until the rule caves. Now swap a word for a person and you get a new kind of fallout. A joke that sticks to a face and won't wash off. Let's talk about when the punchline has a publicist. Celebrity meltdowns. What's worse than a bad review? A meme you can't outlive? That's the curse of fish sticks. A tiny pun turns Kanye West into the gay fish punchline, and the half-life is wild. The joke is sticky because it's simple, rhythmic, and easy to repeat. It scans like a playground chant. You can hear how that spreads, right? Now add celebrity image control. You've got a brand built on genius, ego, and spotless timing. Then a two-syllable tag follows you into interviews, live shows, and every comment thread. Publicists do the let's move on. Fans don't. And here's the twist the internet loved. West's own blog said, in all caps, that South Park murdered him and it was pretty funny even though it hurt his feelings. He even called out his ego. That honesty didn't diffuse the bit. It made it more compelling. Vulnerability plus fame is catnip online. The meme left the episode fast. You'd see callbacks at shows, in viral clips, and in snarky posts from people who never even watched the source. Late-night writers and radio hosts would drop a wink and keep it moving. Forums did the rest. The joke jumped platforms like it had a passport. That's staying power. This is South Park's real superpower. Their roasts act like stickers. Slap one on Tom Cruise, Paris Hilton, Jennifer Lopez, and it clings. It's not the most complex satire, it's the brand. A loud, repeatable label that crowds out the official story. If you're a celebrity, you can post 10 statements. The sticker is what people remember. Reports of blowback helped. You'd hear about tension behind the scenes, comments on mic and off, a little defensiveness here, a curt response there. Each flare-up fed the meme a new meal. Journalists covered the dust-ups because, well, it's fun content. That coverage pushed the bit to people who missed the episode the first time. Here's the psychology. Memes get strong when you loop two ingredients: repetition and resonance. Repeat a tag, and it becomes familiar. Add a star acknowledging the hit, out loud, and it feels stamped with authenticity. That pairing turns a pun into a brand mark. Think of it like quick-drying cement. Step in it early, and your shoe print lives there. Longevity matters too. West later referenced the episode in his song Gorgeous, proof the label outlived the week. And remember, South Park rolled many celebrity targets into big milestone episodes, which widened the blast radius beyond one artist and kept the joke in circulation across audiences. So the mini payoff is simple. South Park doesn't just roast, it rebrands. The label sticks, and it's permanent ink. And when labels collide with belief, the phones don't just ring, they light up. All right, class, settle down. When jokes brush up against belief, the calculus changes. Religious rumbles. All right, class, settle down. The phones lit up because a statue started bleeding from unusual places. You don't need a theology degree to see the problem. The episode lands, the image shocks, and calls come in from parishes and press offices in multiple countries. You can hear the switchboards sweating. Timing did the rest. Bloody Mary aired on the eve of the Immaculate Conception and again on the holy day itself, which guaranteed high visibility and maximum offense. That's like scheduling a roast during a wedding toast. You get double the eyes and half the patience. The show knew the calendar would do some of the marketing, and it did. Then the tug of war starts. Catholic groups and bishops issue demands, pull the episode, apologize, promise restraint. Networks weigh blowback against free speech, who they'll anger, and how long it lasts. You've got faith leaders invoking reverence. You've got programmers defending a satire slot. The emails get long. The statements get careful. The pressure campaign forms a familiar arc. First wave, public statements condemning the depiction. Second wave, calls for advertisers to reconsider and for the network to show respect. Third wave, organized protests outside affiliates, with news vans catching quotes on the sidewalk. Even if you've never seen the episode, you've now heard about it 3 different ways. It also climbed the corporate ladder. Joseph A. Califano, a Catholic board member of Viacom, issued his own condemnation, which pulled the boardroom into the brawl. When your own leadership scolds your show, that's not just PR heat, that's structural pressure. Here's the paradox. The louder the protest, the bigger the ratings bump. Media coverage recaps the plot, clips travel, curiosity spikes. It's the outrage economy at work. Trying to push a joke off the air often turns into free placement. The complaint becomes the trailer. Leaders also play a quieter game. You'll hear strong moral language, then a pivot to community calm. They signal disapproval while steering away from escalation that drags the church into a week-long news cycle. That balance, condemn, then de-escalate, keeps the institution looking firm and measured at the same time. And the outcomes weren't binary. The episode wasn't permanently banned, but Comedy Central did pull a scheduled rerun, proof the squeeze had some effect. Meanwhile, similar flare-ups hit New Zealand and Australia, showing the offense wasn't just local, the template exported easily. And that's the fault line. Free speech versus reverence. Both sides claim moral ground, and both can point to values most people like. Artistic freedom here, sacred respect there. It's not a math problem, it's a vibe check. Which value feels urgent tonight? So the mini payoff is clear. Religious offense sparked noise, and the system bent without snapping. Now take that same collision of belief and broadcast, swap bishops for celebrities with legal teams, and watch how the fight moves from the sidewalk to the boardroom. All right, class, settle down. The case study with lawyers on speed dial has a name: the Scientology saga. All right, class, settle down. The episode is called Trapped in the Closet, but the fallout reads like a hostage note. You press play for a parody. You end up in a whirlpool of legalese, phone calls, and we regret to inform you schedules. You get the vibe, yes? The setup is tight. The show skewers Scientology's doctrine in plain, punchy beats and threads in celebrity devotion as the running gag. It's two lanes merging at freeway speed. Belief claims played straight for comedy, and star power turned into a funhouse mirror. The satire lands because it treats the wild parts as matter of fact. Flat tone, big impact. The Tom Cruise closet bit also serves a legal purpose, poking at long circulating rumors about his sexuality without stating them as fact, which matters when a star has a litigation history. That's joke as legal judo. Then the tension spikes. Isaac Hayes leaves after seasons of laughing at every other belief system. That's where charges of selective outrage walk in, wearing a neon vest. But later, his son says Hayes didn't actually quit, that the statement went out while his father was incapacitated after a stroke. Suddenly, the narrative shifts from he couldn't take a joke to someone spoke for a sick man, which is a really different kind of ugly. Meanwhile, reports swirl that Tom Cruise leaned on the parent company to block a rebroadcast. News outlets carry the claim, Cruise denies, the rerun is canceled, the chill sets in. You don't need access to boardrooms to see the shape of it. A-list rep meets network risk, and the air gets thin. The credits weren't shy about the stakes either. They changed to John Smith and Jane Smith across the board, a wink at Scientology's litigious reputation and a concrete sign of legal fear baked into the episode itself. Here's the real lesson. This isn't about taste, it's about power. Lawyers draft the margins, publicists shape the talking points. Corporate synergy weighs ad buys against heat. And, according to later reporting, the church allegedly ran an investigation that felt like Cold War theater, going through Parker and Stone's trash and trying to recruit a film student as a spy. Satire crashes into a machine built to manage risk, and the machine prefers silence. Think of it like a fire door. Not pretty, really heavy, closes fast. Fans and press slap a label on it, Closet Gate. And now the censorship story outruns the episode. Coverage multiplies. Viewers who missed the first airing now want the forbidden cut. The discourse shifts from was it funny to who gets to decide if it exists. That's a bigger tent. And the mini payoff holds. Attempts to smother the joke become free ads for the joke. But sometimes the cost-benefit meeting isn't about bruised egos or lawsuits. It's about whether a speech can even be heard. All right, class, settle down. This is the chapter where the title writes itself. Muhammad and Censorship Wars. All right, class, settle down. The speech about standing up to fear gets bleeped from the first word to the last. You lean in to hear courage, and all you get is a tone. That's not an edit, that's a statement. The network turns resolve into noise, on purpose. Context matters. Years earlier, Muhammad appeared uncensored in Super Best Friends Without a Storm. Same show, different era. By 200/201, the global climate around depictions had shifted hard. The question wasn't, is this allowed so much as will this put people in danger? So here's the setup. The 200/201 saga returns to Muhammad after those earlier depictions, but now everyone knows the stakes. The show stages a big anniversary run with a simple test. Can we even discuss courage without alarms going off? Then the threats arrive. Not the broad religion versus TV kind, specific posts from a fringe group called Revolution Muslim. Law enforcement flagged them as a small radical outfit, but small isn't the same as harmless. Security shows up early. Internal panic follows. Comedy Central clamps down, and not just on images. Key dialogue gets buried under bleeps. Whole ideas go silent. You don't need footnotes to feel the chill. The bleeping itself becomes performance art. When Kyle steps up to say the thesis, a speech about intimidation and fear with no mention of Muhammad, the sound buries it anyway. The scene stops being about Muhammad and becomes about the act of erasing speech. It's like watching a painter finish a mural and then roll gray paint over it while you clap. You understand the image even though you can't see it. This is the top of the hierarchy. When jokes get you doxxed and threatened, the stakes stop being theoretical. The usual culture war rhythm, outrage, rebuttal, ratings, drops out. You're in a place where the punchline is survival math, not edgy, existential. Media debate kicks in right away. Some argue capitulation, others say staff safety comes first. You'll hear words like responsibility, prudence, and platform duty. The argument isn't about taste anymore. It's about risk budgets. Who owns it? Who bears it? Who gets to quit the table? Here's the blunt insight. Terror tactics can work when the calculus says protect lives over principle. Gatekeepers fold because spreadsheets don't breathe. People do. That doesn't feel noble, but it is real, and the impact lingers. These episodes, and the earlier Muhammad appearance, remain absent from major streaming libraries today. The shelf space has a hole, and that hole teaches its own lesson, so the mini payoff lands like this. The show turned fear into a mirror, and the network used the off switch. Now shift the lens from personal risk to national pride, and watch how borders redraw which jokes get airtime. All right, class, settle down. When satire crosses a border, the rules change. International incidents. All right, class, settle down. One episode, one president, one country saying not today. That's Pinewood Derby. A goofy space heist plot on the surface, but the spark lands south of the border when Mexico's president Felipe Calderón shows up on screen in a less than flattering light. You get the rest. Phones start ringing at the local broadcaster. The setup is simple. An imported cartoon tees off on a sitting leader. MTV's regional arm blinks and pulls the episode. Not forever, but fast enough to signal, we saw the heat. Their public line focused on needing permission to show the Mexican flag. Viewers and critics called that a cover story, since the real friction was the portrayal of Calderón. Programming heads weigh a short-term yank against a week of angry calls, press questions, and regulator side-eye. That's a newsroom math problem, not an artistic one. Now the tension. National pride meets outside satire. Local executives know two forces well: a culture that expects respect for the office, and a regulatory environment that can make life annoying if you look reckless. So they do what a lot of gatekeepers do: pause the feed, write a memo, ask for guidance. It looks cautious because it is. Track the arc. First, the withdrawal. Schedules update. Fans post the "what happened" screenshots. Then, months later, the episode returns with permission from the Ministry of Interior. Same jokes, same plot, now blessed by the process. The detour becomes the story people tell when they link the clip. That approval also confirms the government's hand in the original decision, whatever the flagline said. Here's your insight. Cross-border comedy translates like slang. Some bits ride the plane and still hit, some need a local accent. When the joke hangs on portraying a national figure, especially a sitting president, as foolish or corrupt, you're not just dunking on a character. You're nicking pride, symbols, and a live electorate. That hits different than a jab at general culture or a celebrity. It triggers a different antenna. And we should separate a broadcaster timeout from a government ban. From far away, both look like censorship. Up close, the gears differ. A temporary pull is about risk management and optics. A state directive is about power. Both chill speech, but only one can punish you after the credits roll. Meanwhile, the pullback sparks chatter that keeps the thing alive. Fans trade rips. Blogs recap the joke. The episode becomes a rumor, then an event, then a rerun you set a reminder for. By the time it re-airs, the audience is larger because the pause drew a circle around it. So the mini payoff lands clean. The pushback delayed the punchline, but it didn't erase it. Now scale the stakes from a single episode, paused to a full catalog wiped, and see what happens when the switch flips all the way down. All right, class, Settle down. Here's the chapter where a joke meets a market with no patience. China ban. All right, class, settle down. Critique censorship so hard, the country censors your entire existence. That's the bit. Banned in China takes aim at the unwritten checklist Western studios follow to please Beijing, then flips the clipboard and shows you the notes. You get the meta joke fast. If you edit your soul for market access, what's left to sell? The setup is blunt. Characters bend art to pass a foreign filter, and the show names the trade-offs out loud. No subtext, just a mirror. It calls out the contortions, cut topics, swap lines, sand off edges. The gag lands because it sounds like a boardroom, not a parody. If you've watched the clean, safe versions of movies on global tours, you've seen the homework. It even puts Randy in a forced labor camp modeled on reports from Xinjiang and locks a Winnie the Pooh lookalike behind bars. A 1-2 that puts a spotlight on Beijing's sore spots. Then comes the response. China doesn't snip a scene or blur a face. It scrubs the series. Platforms drop it. Searches for South Park on major sites like Weibo return 0 results. The blackout reads like a full stop, not a comma. You can't argue with the clarity. Say the quiet part about censorship, get the loud answer. The timing pours gasoline. The NBA is in its own firestorm over Daryl Morey's Hong Kong tweet, and every global brand is weighing statements against sales. The creators post a sorry that quotes the moment on purpose. Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. She doesn't look like Winnie the Pooh at all. It's a formal note dressed as a smirk, and it names the trade we all recognize. Here's the core insight. This is economic censorship. The pressure isn't a lawsuit or a protest. It's the fear of losing a huge audience and the partners who want that audience. Billions are the lever. Compliance is the hinge. If you're a studio with a portfolio, that math talks. Meanwhile, you can spot the contrast. Other brands go quiet, file edits, and trim what spooks regulators because renegotiating a release beats losing the market. That's a strategy, not a secret. You remove heat so the film ships, the merch sells, and the next deal stays warm. The silence is its own press release. South Park chooses a different posture. It opts out in public. That choice becomes the message. Will trade reach for voice? Money isn't the god here. The joke is. Audiences clock that stance fast because it's rare and risky, so the mini payoff is clean. When access holds the leash, they'd rather bite it. And when audiences grab a joke without the frame, the damage doesn't come from censors. It comes from copycats. All right, class, settle down. When commentary leaves the screen, it collides with real life. Social commentary gone wrong. All right, class, settle down. A joke about prejudice turns into a schoolyard holiday for bullying. That's the arc. One episode mocks group hate by pushing it to absurd levels, and then kids strip the setup and run with the headline. The result gets a catchy name and a date. You don't need a think piece to see where that goes. Ginger Kids aims at the logic of bigotry. It makes the hate so cartoonish that any reasonable viewer sees the target isn't redheads. It's the mob. The gag is the exaggerated manifesto, the fake science, the hysteria. And the episode actually bakes in an anti-discrimination beat. Cartman thinks he's become ginger, gets treated like an outcast, and learns he was wrong. The satire shows its hand. The irony is that younger viewers missed the reversal and grabbed the insult. But tension arrives where satire always breaks. Context loss. Younger viewers hear the chant, not the critique. They lift the label, turn it into a dare, and voila, kick a ginger day. The episode provided the language. The crowd supplied the impact. Teachers start sending emails, parents field calls. The joke walks off screen and gets legs. Real reports of harassment follow in schools across multiple countries, with some incidents investigated as hate crimes. You saw local news segments, stern assemblies, and kids holding suspension slips like boarding passes. Then a celebrity with ginger hair, Ed Sheeran, weighs in years later. That episode of South Park fucking ruined my life. He points at how the bit lingers long after the credits. That's when a TV gag becomes social weather. Here's the core insight. Satire works only if the audience tracks the target. Miss that, and you arm the wrong people. It's like handing out foam swords at a kid's party and then realizing one kid brought a real blade. Same shape, totally different outcome. The irony reads as instruction when the viewer can't see the wink. Online, the backfire speeds up. Clips travel without setup. Edits crop out the reversal. Algorithm feeds push the loud line, not the subtext. By the time the source lands, the meme has rewritten the point. The lesson goes from mock mobs to mock this group, and good luck reversing that with a comment section. This isn't cancel culture, it's collateral damage. Intent says aim at prejudice. Effect says some kids learned a new slur. Both can be true at once, and that gap is where schools, parents, and platforms end up doing cleanup. Yes, the shows offend everyone equally. Ethos helps people see the broader aim. But it doesn't immunize outcomes. Equity of targets doesn't equal equity of impact. Some groups take harder hits. So the mini payoff lands bluntly. Misread the mirror, and it becomes a weapon, not a lesson. And when gatekeepers step in after the fact, they don't just issue warnings, they start cutting scenes. So what happens when the audience has a controller instead of a remote? Real-world consequences. All right, class, settle down. The stick of truth ships with censored scenes and, wait, title cards roasting the censors. You press start, expect chaos, and instead hit a card that calmly explains what you're not allowed to see. It's the game breaking the fourth wall to laugh at the wall. Here's the setup. Certain regions blocked depictions tied to an anal probe and an abortion, as well as Nazi imagery, which is illegal in Germany. The hot buttons are different by territory, so the same disc plays a different show depending on where you live. You get the familiar list of don'ts, but now it's interactive, which makes every cut feel bigger. Games run a tougher gauntlet than TV. Ratings boards are stricter, rules stack across countries, and interactivity raises the alarm. What's a gross-out gag on a sitcom becomes you did that in a game. That's where the tone risks getting gutted. If you slice the body horror bits and the taboo jokes, what's left? A walking tour. So Ubisoft adjusts for Europe and Australia, trims the scenes that trigger the hammer, and ships, in some cases voluntarily, without a direct order from ratings boards because anticipating trouble is cheaper than fighting it. That's self-censorship as risk management. Parker and Stone answer with those deadpan cards, complete with mocking, graphic detail of the removed material. It's less "we're sorry" and more "we see you," like a teacher writing the skipped question on the board with a wink. That move is judo. Use the force coming at you, flip it, and land on your feet. The missing scene becomes a gag about the act of removal. You keep the satirical spine by treating censorship as part of the punchline. The red tape is now a character, which is really on-brand. Contrast that with TV. On broadcast, you're dealing with one set of standards at a time and passive viewing. In games, you juggle multiple boards, each with its own tripwires, plus platform holders who like to weigh in. It's not one referee, it's a panel. And you're the contestant, live. Different medium, same war. Keep the voice intact while dodging knives. Adapt without surrendering. In practice, that means swapping a shock scene for a meta joke that tells you exactly what you missed and why it's missing. You still feel the edge, even if the blade is off-screen. And by the way, Parker and Stone were reportedly happy content had been cut, because it let them write those cards and turn the restriction into a bit. Constraint became a prop. Fans got it right away. A black screen would shrug. A dry, mocking slate invites laughter and makes the cut itself the joke. Players snap pics, share them, and the commentary spreads faster than the original scene would have. That's the lesson at the end of the controller path. Platforms write the rules, but creators can still write the punchline. And if you've been following our ladder, you've seen how the stakes climb when those rules meet outrage. All right, class, settle down. Here's where we put the pieces in one place. Conclusion. The ladder is real. Words lose bite at the bottom. Danger has teeth up top. We moved through profanity tests, celebrity labels, faith blow-ups, power plays, terror chills, national pride, market math, misfires, and platform rules. Not all controversies are equal. Cultural offense stings, but threats to safety redraw the line. If this gave you clarity or a laugh, subscribe and tell me which level drew the hardest line for you. Network bleeps, market bans, or real-world threats. As Trey Parker put it, you can only say, "You can't do that so many times to Matt and me before we're gonna do it." Offense isn't avoided, it's used.